Hello everybody, welcome to Ask Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 80,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also drop a like on this video, it only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference. Today's video is a weird one. Again, if you haven't picked up on it, I'm out of town, so I recorded a couple of videos ahead of time. And there's one player in particular that I've had a lot of thoughts on that has been getting a lot of shit lately, and that is Talen Horton-Tucker, who is somebody that I have always had thoughts on, I guess. So I guess that it makes sense that I'm continuing to have thoughts on Talen Horton-Tucker. Talen, to me, is a very weird case of what I call, and I hate the name because it sounds like conspiratorial. Is that even a word? The Lakers media machine. Lakers players very often get built up and then torn down after the fact, either because the expectations that are built up were not there, or maybe that player leaves. I already see a ton of Lakers fans that give shit to Alex Caruso or act like he's not that good. I realize that's a minority of the fan base, but it is there. Really, you could find just about any kind of Lakers fans. There's a lot of them. And fucking Danny Green. I mean, I guess no one really built up Danny Green, but my whole point was when I made a video about this a while back, the way that the Lakers build up their players and the way that they exist in the media, to me, is just uncomfortable and not an ideal situation. And especially when you are a 20-something-year-old rookie in the league on a team that has championship aspirations, it's kind of a bad environment. Now, initially, especially because this roster is so goddamn old, it's like Talen's playing with a bunch of dads by comparison to him. Like, there's a bunch of guys who are 18, 20 years older than him on this roster. Where am I going with this? Because of that situation, Talen is like the bright spot in the long term. So it's not just what he brings to the table right now, but it's also the fact that long term there is potential with him. And the problem with potential is the possibilities of potential can build expectation when that expectation is not necessarily fair. This is something that I made a deep dive about. It's not necessarily fair to put these expectations on these players based on the idea of what they could be. Not to say that there's no logic in doing something like that, like for Andrew Wiggins, who is the example of that deep dive. I feel like if you have a ton of upside, it kind of makes sense to be disappointed if that player doesn't end up reaching that upside. So to that end, I kind of get it with Talen Horton-Tucker. But why is he so like getting shit on right now? It's an unideal situation where he has played unideally. And he had a game the other day where he was 0 for 7 from 3. The other game that I watched recently, he was like 1 for 9 from the field. And, you know, it's not the lone problem, but him out there with the starters, or him out there with DeAndre Jordan and substitute of Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis is out with injury, it's not good. I mean, I think that's well established that it's not good, especially from a shooting perspective. As I mentioned, he was 0 for 7 outside. And while I did not watch that game live, I caught the clips, and a lot of it was fucking open threes, and he had to take them because teams were giving them to him. And in an ideal world, he's the player who can hit those shots, but he is not. This year, he is taking 3.7 threes a game, and he is shooting 24%. But the problem with Talen, to me, and this is the fundamental problem with him and the Lakers, is that there's nothing wrong with him per se, but his limitations as a player are counterintuitive to the goals of the Lakers. So it is fundamentally a matter of fit. Talen Horton-Tucker, as a prospect right now, again, he is 21 years old. Talen Horton-Tucker is a decent mid-range shooter. He's shown it's a low enough volume that I'm not going to confidently say he's good at it, but he's had multiple games where he's shown flashes of being a pretty damn good mid-range shooter. He's a really good finisher for a smaller guard, even though Talen is fucking like wide and built as shit, so it's not the same as like oh man, he's 6'4", therefore short, therefore small guard, but like he's fucking built like a tank. So to that end, not necessarily a one-to-one thing there, but a really, really good finisher. His playmaking is weird. Sometimes he's a really good playmaker, sometimes he's a black hole, and I'd say on the night-to-night basis, he leans more towards black hole, which is especially problematic with the Lakers' current situation. But defensively, he's also really, really good. So you're getting a player who can pretty much do everything really well except shoot threes. And the thing is, that's a player that can succeed. And I think Talen's jump shot is good enough, like in terms of like the form of it. He doesn't have an ugly looking jump shot. I think it's good enough looking that a couple of years from now, especially the fact that he's an improving free throw shooter, he could feasibly be a passable three-point shooter and build that upon the game that he currently has, given the opportunity where he can be an on-ball creator for himself frequently in a way that does not interrupt the flow of the offense, because he's not in a situation where he needs to defer to veteran superstar talents. Genuinely, the guy has all-star capabilities. Like, I think he could be that type of player. And that's kind of the problem, though. Because there's that potential, it's almost like Lakers fans and Lakers media treats it like that's what he's supposed to be right now. And it's not really fair to his development as a player, because you're rushing this guy to be ready now when that's just not the timeline he is on. And it's not the Lakers' fault, it's not his fault, but this situation is not good for either party here, because the Lakers can't afford to wait on Talen Horton-Tucker. It's perfectly reasonable for them to not really be in the position to wait for him. But Talen Horton-Tucker can't just suddenly be what you want him to be. It's not, it doesn't fucking work like that. So it is a bad situation for both parties involved. And what annoys me is the result of this is people acting as though Talen Horton-Tucker is trash. The guy is not trash. He is 21 years old. He is a young player who is developing his game, who's going to have off nights, especially when he is on a team that is so counter to what his strengths are. So it's no fucking mystery why he has had these struggle games. And I don't know why we have to play this game with him where we act like he's fucking garbage because of something that is outside of his control. And I don't know why we have to play this game where we act like he's God initially, and then he's not actually God, and then that means he sucks. Why do these things have to be on such extremes? I truly do not understand. It's not a good way of discussing the sport. It's not fair to the players involved. I don't even think it's fun to begin with. It's not as though it's something that comes to the expense of the players, but is actually interesting and a fun subject to talk about. It's not. It's not good to put these projections on these players. It's not really that interesting. Sure, it's fun to talk about what someone can be, but to move that what they can be to what I expect them to be is shitty and toxic and bad. So that's the point I was trying to make. Talen Horton-Tucker is a good NBA player in a bad situation, and I hate that situation, on top of the fact that it is on such a big scale because it's the Los Angeles fucking Lakers, that we have to see him get shit on for something that's not his fault. And again, the guy is 21 years old. You're not supposed to expect players to be this ready and this consistent right now on a championship contender. It's not realistic. There are some players who are capable of doing that at that age, but those are players that are better than Talen Horton-Tucker by quite a bit, or maybe players who are just more built to contribute to winning basketball in the current moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're better players, especially in the long term. So it's weird to me that there's both the situation of projecting his potential onto him and what he can be, but then also not giving him the time to become what he can be. I just really want Talen Horton-Tucker traded to a team where the Lakers will get back somebody who can contribute now, so we don't have to worry about that, although I'm sure that guy will find a way to get death threats if he misses an open three or something. And Talen Horton-Tucker will be free to develop as a prospect the way that he's supposed to, rather than the way that people are projecting onto him and holding him to a standard that is unreasonable. But those are my thoughts on Talen Horton-Tucker and that whole situation in LA. One of the many fucking situations in LA. And that is the end of the video. Goodbye.